We need to pull some HOLDO maneuvers.
This is where the fun begins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the HOLDO Maneuver podcast. I'm Marc Vibbert, and filling in for this side for Michael Soren this week. And if you're just listening to this, me pointing doesn't resolve to anything to you, anyways. But
You're doing
filling
great,
in from Michael Soren this week is Mr. Kenny Madison.
Howdy. Absolute pleasure to be here. A delight, and all the positive adjectives that I can use to describe being here.
It's good to hear.
Good.
Now, if people haven't listened to the show before, the HOLDO Maneuver is a podcast where Mike and I usually try to immerse ourselves in Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives. If this is your first time listening and or watching, this podcast will share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away. But before we do that in this episode, Kenny, a question.
Can I hop in here real quick?
Yeah.
Because I was doing my research. I do prep. If you listen to Trek Wars podcast, you know I do research and prep. It's a whole thing. Yeah. And I was doing research on Skeleton Crew's droid SM-33, trying to figure out all of those things, and I found out a great piece of trivia. I would love to share this just at the top of the show, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, just off the top of your head, because it's a wild piece of trivia, do you know what droid SM-33's favorite letter is?
I don't know. What's the hook to this?
I'll give you 3 guesses.
Oh. Tell me.
His favorite letter is, of course,
R. Nice.
Did I nail it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hold on, everybody. Hold on.
Thank goodness. One more time. Little 3s. Thank you.
And then Yeah. Figure give everybody the treasure of the best kind of pirate jokes in this episode.
Always. It's a very piratey episode today.
And because jokes are better when you explain them, I hope that you noticed my little subtle thing in there too when you were asking about SM-33.
I did not, because I was so focused on trying to maintain my effortless charisma.
Oh, you didn't get hooked on that?
Oh. Play the crickets. Just play the crickets real quick.
Don't try to stop me this time, Smee. Don't try to stop me. Don't try to stop me, Smee. Smee's try to stop me. Smee, try to stop me.
I would never try and stop you from playing more sound effects. I think every podcast should have an obnoxious level of morning zoo type sound effects.
Maybe like 66 of them.
Execute Order 66.
Yeah.
If you could play the crickets again, I think that would be very... Thank you. Appreciate it.
Roger.
Great. You made me laugh so much that I had to cough right into the microphone. Hope you're proud of yourself, Mark.
Yeah. But for anyone wondering what we're actually talking about in this episode 81 of HOLDO Maneuver, we're talking about the entire first season of Skeleton Crew. We usually, for the shows, will do like an episode by episode thing, but because this got released in December and just, everyone's busy in December, we decided just to cover it as, not because we didn't like the show, because obviously I'm not going to bury the lead. We really enjoyed the show. So we kind of wish that we had been able to do episodes week by week for it. But we're going to talk about all of the first season within this episode here.
Yeah.
So, since you're the guest, Kenny, what are your overall thoughts of the show and season 1 of Skeleton Crew?
Coming out swinging here. I think that this is the second best Star Wars TV show. Well, maybe third behind Rebels. It's wonderful. It's exactly what I want from. Well, it's 95% exactly what I want from Star Wars, which is Star Wars vibes plus completely new things. It's a really specific needle that they have to thread, and I think that they threaded it pretty darn well. I think it did suffer from being dumped in December. Like people might feel like someone's trying to open my door right behind me. Anyways, I feel like it tried to, I don't know, Disney dumped it in December or something along those lines, kind of got subsumed. And also I think it is victim to what so many streaming shows is, which is it feels like a 2-hour, especially Star Wars streaming shows, feels like a 2-hour thing that was stretched out into 8 episodes. Because I think that there is a spectacular 2-ish hour movie in there. But as it is, instead, we have 8 pretty darn good episodes. It is light, it is fluffy, it gives me the vibes that I want. It's fun. It's not examining lore. It's new. I think I mean, also I can't help but just contrast it against the rest of Star Wars, which is so deep in exploring lore, and Skeleton Crew is not that.
Yeah.
There's no member berries that I could see, which is almost impossible for Star Wars to do. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't recall them like shoving any piece of lore so you could be like, hey, oh, recognize this? Hey.
No.
Hey.
The only thing I would say in regards to that is that Wim is kind of like the audience surrogate in that, and like as far as like a character that would want like member berries or like want kind of, because like his whole thing in the show was like, you know, he wants like the adventure and whatnot, and is like reading through like these like basically like his like e-reader books of like stories about like Jedi and stuff in there. And
An amazing design.
The sacred texts.
Design. Yeah.
And like the shows we ultimately find out like the show is set after episode 6, Return of the Jedi, but seemingly before or maybe around the same time as Mando, but it's like,
yeah, it's
just like this because like Attin is just like this hidden planet on purpose. Or I mean, spoiler alert, not by the end of the show anymore. So it's, but yeah, I like you were saying, like I liked the vibes of the show, and like I really liked how they leaned into that with the marketing of the show too. Like all of the marketing for it was like very as if the show came out in the 80s and was like a Saturday morning TV show you were like watching, or like a Saturday night like kind of serial. Like it seemed like this show seemed like the closest thing to like a George Lucas like weird out there kind of show that like he would have developed to like almost like as like this would have been something maybe that would have aired like on TV in the 80s maybe.
Yeah, if anything, I think that the show could have benefited from those weirder 80s vibes.
Yeah. And like there's plenty of, like we'll get into a little bit more, but there's like plenty of Easter eggs in that too. Like Mike and I texted you and Aspen about our favorite Coke Rabbit from the Battle for Endor Ewok movie. That's
right. In episode 2, I think.
Yeah, and then I think we had Hooter in there from Captain EO. It's just like because they go to basically that's like what was the name of like the pirate like island in Pirates of the Caribbean, or like in real life I guess too. It's like that whole island that's like just for pirates.
Oh my gosh, I don't recall. But now you're making me want to watch Pirates of the
Right.
Caribbean again.
But well, so there's basically like the space
Tortuga.
equivalent. Yeah, Tortuga. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes.
It's like basically the space equivalent of that in here. Like, you know, like we had Nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy, and then this planet is kind of like that same kind of thing here in this show too.
Giving you those Cantina vibes while also doing something quite different. It's uglier.
Yeah.
The same. Giving you the same vibes but doing something different. Same but different. Which is very hard for Star Wars to do, apparently.
Yeah. And it like even has like a little bit of like Spaceballs in there too, like with Wim, because he's like playing with like action figures at different points in the show. Like him and Neel even like do the same thing that like any kid that's ever like Star Wars has done, where like even if they don't own a lightsaber, they'll like play with them and just, you know, like do the motions. And then Neel with his like fake like gut cut and like pretending like he was dying from getting sliced in half there too.
The characters Wim, Neel, KB, Fern.
Yeah. Also all great names too, not like
outstanding names.
Yeah.
Star Warsy but familiar. Especially Neel. Freaking love the characters. It would have been very easy to just make this Stranger Things in Star Wars, because that's what it felt like it was going in, and it feels more strictly Goonies-esque.
Yeah.
But even darker.
Yeah, it plays with like all of those kind of like vibes of each of those things.
Yeah, especially
with like
Goonies.
and with, like the little speeder bikes too, like being bikes.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah.
But the characters are so great. I enjoyed how vividly they were all drawn. That has been a difficulty in Star Wars recently for me. It feels like they just want to put a helmet and make someone a badass. These characters are not badasses. These characters are characters that are way in over their head, which makes great adventure happen.
Yeah.
And then you pair it up with friggin' Jotna Nawood, if that is his real name. An excellent character. Like so good. And at first I thought that Jude Law was a little bit miscast, but by the end of the show, it just really comes into his own as an excellent baddie. He's so good. He's Han Solo, but not. Same, but different, because this time he's the villain.
Yeah, like
because they're existing in a dark, dark world.
Like, what if Han Solo was a dick?
Yeah.
And just didn't choose to be good.
Yeah.
That's basically kind of his vibe. And also, if Han Solo had force powers.
Yes.
Because he's a former Jedi Padawan.
Yeah.
Which, that was interesting too. And I sent this to you. We're kind of going to be going all over the place, but it was like, right. They eventually give us a little bit of his backstory because like we're like, oh, he's a Jedi, like you know, because that's like why Wim is like so drawn to him too, because it's like his whole kind of thing of wanting, like the whole reason they get into the Onyx, what is it, the Onyx
Cinder.
Yeah, the Onyx Cinder, which is a great Star Wars ship name.
Great Star Wars ship name. Takes like 5 or 6 episodes to find out what the name of the ship is. Yeah. Ship looks like a clunker in the beginning, and then
it's got a special button to not look like that.
Yeah, which I wish that my Honda Fit had that button as well if I got into a tight spot.
Old and busted, new hotness. Yeah. Just to quote Men in Black 2.
No, I know what you're quoting. I know that you're quoting Men in Black 2.
Yeah, the much loved Men in Black 2.
What is great? Men in Black 2,
starring Ahsoka
obviously.
Tano.
Oh boy.
See, it comes back.
It comes back. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah.
When are you going to do a Men in Black episode of Holdo Maneuver?
I guess when they do the crossover with 21 Jump Street.
You're going to be waiting for a while on that one, boss.
Oh yeah. But yeah. Yeah, I like in the whole like thing too, like how it's like played up to, like, because you're like, wait, so he's got powers but he's still like a douche, so like, and then you find out that like he was a Jedi Padawan who saw his master basically get killed during Order 66, and then instead of, you know, as like a lot of the like
Wait,
former
when did he get executed, Derry?
I think it was
Execute Order 66.
And I needed the audio reminder.
yeah. So like, yeah, he chose to go one way after that instead of another way, whereas like most characters that we've met through like different stories, like whether it's like the Jedi Fallen Order video games or Clone Wars or Rebels or Ahsoka or whatever else, that we've found out actually that there's like 40 or 50 Jedi that actually survived the Jedi Purge. You know,
There's
I mean,
only
that's
one hope for the galaxies. Luke Skywalker. All the Jedi are gone. And also there's like
except for
100 other Jedis.
except for that guy,
Don't worry about it.
except for her, except for him.
It truly is frustrating for
Except for
being
them.
so reverent to the original trilogy while also constantly making. You just got to be able to kill your characters.
Yeah.
I think it kind of works here because it's
Because he's a bad guy.
because he's a bad guy, and also because I think Star Wars has introduced enough that the idea of just having the Force, feels like less of an invention as opposed to.
Yeah, like I would have been okay with him just having the Force too, because like, you know, the Broom Boy just has the Force.
Is he Broom Boyd's dad?
Maybe, probably. He's actually Rey's dad.
Yeah, no, that's right. Mark, I was so scared. I was so scared that this is going to be a young Palpatine clone.
It is. There's still
Don't do
time.
this to me.
There's still
Don't
time.
do this. There is. I'm sure that there is some YouTube VFX dude who is like, Skeleton Crew doesn't make sense because who is Jodna Nawwood? That doesn't make sense. So in my edit, I've been able to CG a ghost Palpatine in there in the back, which makes sense.
Although, if that was the case, Jod would have been played by Matt Smith because of the episode 9 part that Matt Smith got casted for, and then that part got cut.
Did they film with Matt Smith and they just cut him out?
I think so. I don't know.
I remember reading that news. There's an article about the making of episode 9 published on some blog that I'm interested in, that I have in my to read queue. Yeah, it just compiled a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
I mean, how they made the sequel trilogy is extremely interesting to me because everything feels so well, and just those 5 movies from Force Awakens to Last Two. I wish The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, because it feels so meticulously overcorrected, except for, or not overcorrected, but corporatized. Is that true? Force Awakens, palate cleanser. Rogue One, Star Wars can be different. Last Jedi, the main story can be different. Solo, you like Han Solo. Rise of Skywalker. Don't worry about all of that other stuff. It's going to be the same.
Sure.
Did you know that? Did you know all of that, Mark?
Yeah, I did.
So I want to figure out what the heck happened behind the scenes, what the meetings were, Who said what? They gotta wait way too long in order to find out. Who's that? Who was that? Who is that?
Sylvie's trying to find Palpatine too. She's like, somehow Palpatine survived.
Oh boy. But we're not talking about Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
That's
No.
where Trek Wars to tangents on. We're talking about Skeleton Crew. A good show.
Now, you brought up Goonies earlier too, and speaking of Jod and being a Jedi too, is like there's that whole scene where they basically find like spoiler alert for like, the end of the Goonies, I guess. But like when they find the pirate ship in the Goonies and find One-Eye Willie, also it was the 80s. They knew what they were doing with naming the pirate One-Eyed Willie. I don't know what that means. So I'm innocent. So
I don't know either.
yeah. So people in the comments, tell us what One-Eyed Willie means. I guess.
Please.
Be descriptive.
Please.
But you know, like how Mikey and that he basically Mikey and Wim kind of have an equivalent here, where they kind of want to both go on that like adventure to, you know, find like purpose in a way. And like when they basically come across like that treasure room in this show in Skeleton Crew, and then Wim finds a lightsaber in there. And that's kind of where we get like that first turn with Jod too. And Wim goes to turn and it's like it's a build up to like this big, like you're like, oh cool, like Wim's gonna have this big heroic moment. He's gonna turn the lightsaber on, and then he turns it on and it's upside down.
Good.
Yeah, and he's like, oh crap, and it like falls and bounces, and I was like,
very good.
And then I just like the kind of like build up to that, and then you just like, and like how he immediately just like feels like shame and kind of like hides after that. So
yeah,
it's like that was a great scene. I liked it a lot. And then, you know, like, and then we see Jod pick that up at the end of that, and then we don't see the lightsaber again for a bit. And like he uses the lightsaber a few times in it, but it's not like there's not lightsaber fights in this show or anything. Like
no,
like spoiler it's again. He uses it to kill Hal 9000, who's the supervisor of Attin. Or for you MCU fans out there, Kevin. So it could be Kevin there too.
I was thinking Master Control from Tron.
Yeah,
we all have our own robot that we're going to.
Yeah, be that too. So, you know, were you guessing that that's who the supervisor is going to be that whole time?
I was not in the slightest. I was going to be like, which cameo are they going to pull out to reveal who the supervisor is?
Luke Skywalker.
And I was pleased as punch that it was just a robot, and I think that fits into. I mean, I want to watch this show again because I think it deceptively has a lot more going on thematically than what was being presented.
Yeah.
Especially in the interplay in that last episode, which is definitely the finale was far and away my favorite episode, just because.
Yeah, it's one of the best Star Wars Disney Plus TV show finales.
Yeah. Not just because of the driving action, but I feel like so a lot going on thematically, lots of stuff about different generations, younger generations seeing something completely differently and having to being able to rise to the occasion. Parent, and then also just kind of blindly following authority at the same time.
Yeah.
With the parents personified, well, or robotified by the supervisor, which makes it hollow that they're just following this and trying to isolate themselves.
Yeah. And then like the whole thing with like we see the other planet, kind of like a twin planet to Attin.
Yes.
And like what went down there and what happened there, and like how almost like Attin seems like it's an outlier more than like the norm, where like that one, like that planet survived being, you know, because like we find on that other planet too, like it's got the coordinates and map for all the other planets that were supposed to be like and that were like mints and banks for them, but it seems like Attin was the only one that was around because of that. So it ends up becoming like this whole like mythical like pirate lore thing within the galaxy, like like the Lost City of Gold or like something like that, but like within the Star Wars galaxy.
When in reality they just make money.
Yeah.
Which is so fascinating. And also again, coming back to that last episode and living through these terrible times that we're living in right now. And the kids are the only ones that can see all of this stuff can come crashing down because they haven't isolated themselves. They've engaged with the universe at large, initially because they wanted to get out of these boring, doldrum suburban settings. And then the complex truth. It would have been very easy to just make Attin like the treasure and be like, hey, know you want to go on adventures, but really home is where the heart is. But the answer is much more complex of being like, yes, you're coming from extreme wealth. You didn't realize how good you've had it. And also, we can't just live in isolation. We can't just turn ourselves off to what the heck is going on. We have to engage.
Yeah.
Because all of this wonderful things, all these wonderful things that you, Mom and Dad, are telling me could come crashing down. I have seen it. And
like the
we have to be
Republic's on a Jod's face.
Yeah. What?
Like the credits onto Jod's face. He said, you should come crashing down, like when all the golden metal credits all hit him in the face. And that didn't hurt, I guess. It's soft gold.
Well, yeah, it's soft gold.
Yeah.
One of those soft golds.
Yeah, it's like the same kind of gold that like Scrooge jumps into and doesn't like.
He doesn't break his neck. That's right.
It doesn't get like a compound fracture. It's the same kind of gold.
Isn't it called Scroogium?
Yeah.
It's not gold. It's called Scroogium.
Yeah, or unobtainium? No, that's a different thing.
Is DuckTales canon in Star Wars?
No, it is in the MCU because of Howard.
Because of Howard?
I don't know.
DuckTales could be canon. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry,
Howard
I thought you were talking about Howard Stark.
No,
you're talking about Howard the Duck.
Yeah. Yeah. Why would I be talking about Howard Stark? Obviously,
I don't know. Howard Stark's a compelling character.
Howard the Duck and his wife Darcy, and their daughter Birdie.
Boy, I think I might have missed out on some MCU stuff, which I have. I haven't watched Echo. Haven't watched all of the Netflix shows. Didn't watch season 2 of Loki.
Leah Thompson walked so that Kat Dennings could run.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
So anyways.
Anyways.
Treasure Planet. Great Disney animated film. And this show had very Treasure Planet vibes to it.
Yeah.
They even say Treasure Planet at one time in the show.
It's been a while since I watched Treasure Planet. Tell me more. Tell me more, Mark.
Well, if anyone's ever read Treasure Island, it's basically Treasure Island, but in space.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt in there as the main character. You got Martin Short in there as an android. So it's a pretty good cast too. Yeah. So I would say recommend. With all the Disney animated to live action remakes that they've made, I feel like the ones that they should remake are the ones that didn't do as well when they came out, if they're going to do them.
That's correct.
That aren't as like, or maybe are more of like a cult hit. Like you could like Atlantis, because that would fit like a vibe of doing a really cool live action movie for Atlantis, or Treasure Planet would also be a very cool live action movie, as can be seen by Skeleton Crew here.
Mm-hmm.
You got the cool like space like surf sail thing that's in that movie. You
Yeah.
got a good Goo Goo Dolls song in Treasure Planet. So I mean,
You have the moon base
yeah,
that's in
that looks like the crescent, like a crescent moon.
the design in Treasure Planet is unreal. It's so good.
Yeah.
And the titular Treasure Planet, where there's an X ring.
They did.
Pretty
There's a
cool.
CG arm in that movie with hand-drawn animation, and to test that animation, they tested it because this will bring it back to Skeleton Crew too. Is that they tested it on an animated version of Captain Hook. If you go to the bonus features of Treasure Planet, you can see test footage of Captain Hook with the metal cyborg arm, the CG arm on his arm to test that.
Mark's a big fan of Treasure Planet. He's bringing up them DVD special features. Is this an Easter egg?
Yeah, I think it's just like in the bonus features. I posted it like a long time ago in Animation Fascination, like as just like a picture. I think you can find it too if you just type Captain Hook Treasure Planet.
Yeah, but your way is better.
Yeah, and I say that all because you were also the first person to point this out, like while you were watching it, and then I noticed it after you said that was because SM-33, like they knew what they knew what they were doing. They're like, oh, this is a show about pirates. We'll name the droid SM-33. And I was like,
good,
appreciate
great,
that.
Excellent casting of Nick Frost.
Yeah, who's Smee? Smee's me.
Smee's me.
Yeah.
So we got Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, both in the Star Wars universe.
Nick Frost with a little bit more of a substantial role than Simon Pegg.
I just don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's because Simon Pegg's more of a Star Trek guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, apparently. I feel like Nick Frost's role was maybe 12 quarter portions bigger than Simon Pegg's. Maybe.
Remember that part in Force Awakens, Mark?
Yeah.
Where they make the bread?
Yeah.
And it might be the greatest special effects piece of Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful.
Remember how so you said that the show doesn't do member berries, but it does slightly in like but very organic ways.
As opposed to like bringing back a Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, like someone is watching one of the like the hollow graphic dances that people may recognize from the holiday special, or maybe not because they never watched the holiday special.
May recognize. Everyone's watched the holiday special. What are you talking about, Mark?
But Mick Giacchino, son of Michael Giacchino, was on our friend Ralph and James podcast, Live Action Star Wars, recently when they talked about the finale, and he was talking about how they had to like that the whole fact that like our friend Patrick Hotnoir was on that episode too, is like that the whole friend of Kenny and Aspen as well, is that also the day that we're recording this episode is Patrick's birthday. So happy birthday, Patrick Hotnoir.
Happy birthday, Patrick Hotner.
Or yeah, if you end up watching this, I don't know if you're going to. Anyways, in that episode, they talked about the fact that no one really owned like parts of the music from different things from the holiday special, just because of like it's just kind of exists in kind of like the ether. Like when Mick Giacchino did the music, like they didn't have any of like actual like written out score for stuff from the special in the Lucasfilm archives at all. They like I guess the best print they had for him was like a VHS like copy of it, which I remember when we talked to like Adam F. Goldberg and Kyle Newman last year, like when they were doing their documentary of the disturbance in the Force, like I think they found like they were able to get some kind of, I think it was 4K, but like they were able to compile some kind of like HD master of the holiday special, and like that's like whenever you go to clips of the special within the documentary, it's from like what they were able to restore from it and that. So
that's so interesting. Were they able to get their hands on a master and then do like some fancy upscaling?
I think that was partly what I remember from when we talked to them about that, but it's just something that's interesting that like that the holiday special is just like kind of so like a thing that like wants to be forgotten, that there's like not even, it's like almost got like BBC in the 60s like cataloging efforts to it, in a sense, where it's like, hey, oh, maybe here's this VHS, maybe half of it's still on there, but the other half's George's wedding that he taped over the holiday special with.
You would, yeah.
But I did like inclusions of like these little inclusions of stuff like with like Neel. I don't remember, was that Neel or was it at Wim's house? It was at someone's house.
It was at Neel's house. I'm pretty darn sure.
But it was like it was shot for shot that same like holographic dance that I think that was Stinky or Scratchy, whatever Chewbacca's father-in-law's name was. Itchy, yeah, you know,
Itchy?
Stinky, Itchy, Scratchy, you know.
Itchy, Mala. What's the kid's name? That might be the kid's name. No, because Itchy's the weirdest one.
Yeah.
Mala.
Well, and then you see them fully written out, and it's like, oh, it's like Itch Nabaka or whatever like that. Like, it's not actually Itchy. That's just like his nickname, like Chewbacca's nickname. But I was like, but his name's still Itchy.
Chewbacca.
Remember,
I ain't gonna say that. I'll call you Chewie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, just at least it wasn't the other video that Chewbacca's father-in-law was watching, because I don't think that's age appropriate for Neel.
I think Diane Carroll is appropriate for all ages. Mark?
I don't know if VR porn is appropriate for kids in elementary school or middle school.
Depends on which state you live.
I'll just leave it at that. Neel's awesome.
Neel's my guy. I'm a real Neel. Good Lord, am I a Neel? What an amazing use of practical and CG blending as well. It is excellent. It just looks so. Neel looks so good, and then he's got his little mouth right behind his trunk, and then also he's got like a little scared boy energy, which I relate to heavily.
Yeah, and he's more idealistic and like sensitive. And then like like we were talking about this episode too, like the other planet that basically has like kid soldiers on it, where that's kind of like a more Neel focused episode too, and in that he's kind of like the moral compass of that episode, with like, why can't he just, isn't it just braver to like stop fighting? So, and not in a way of like giving up, but like just choosing not to fight.
I mean, that reminded me of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode where Kai Opaka, spoilers for a 25-year-old show, Kai Opaka gets killed and trapped on the planet because there's nanoprobes, and has to convince this eternally warring factions to stop fighting. And so she decides to stay behind so she can litigate that. It's great. I really dug that episode, probably because it felt so Star Trek-y in that premise. And I also like that episode because I feel like the rest of the episodes feed into the overarching theme, and then the show stops to have a proper episode of television that is character-focused and idea-focused. And self-contained. It felt like a TV episode for a TV show. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you've watched more of the Disney Disney Star Wars TV stuff. But I feel like it's all been beholden to, if there are individual episodes, then it's about badasses doing badass things as opposed to exploring ideas and character. Or it's one narrative that is stretched way too long. Am I wrong? Am I wrong with that, Mark? Correct me where I'm wrong.
I think that kind of fits.
Yes.
Like Andor obviously is like a little bit different, just because
wildly different, yeah.
because that show almost does like a thing where it's like 3-episode arc, like
Yeah.
it does like a Clone Wars kind of thing where it's like these 3 episodes are a story arc, these 3 episodes are a story arc, these episodes are a story arc.
It splits
Season-
the difference in
Yeah.
such a wonderful and novel way. And then also, what's fun about doing Track Wars the way that we've been doing it, realizing that kind of structure goes all the way back to droids.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go. But
Andor's doing a real droid.
and let me get the second and last season of Andor this year. So yeah, we got that to look forward to this year
Hope
too.
they stick the landing.
These are cross fingers, not middle fingers, just in case.
Well, if anyone deserves to middle finger anything, it's you, Mark.
Oh.
You deserve it. You're such a nice guy.
That sounded somewhat dirty because. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I apologize.
No worries.
I own my mistake. Yeah.
Sorry, it's not a dirty Chewbacca. Anyways, so the main protagonist, we'll just go. We kind of talked about Neel here. Is that so? Wim is kind of the de facto main protagonist. He's the one that's like dreaming of adventures and like love like Jedi and all that. And then like his journey is kind of more about like finding like strength in himself and like becoming friends with Fern and KB and whatnot. And like I like his arc in there too, because his whole thing is like he kind of sets it in motion too, because he presses he's trying to dig this ship up that he thinks is like a Jedi temple. He presses the button that basically gets them lost. So like he's like the one that instigates all of this stuff happening, and then once like he's out there, he's like, oh shit, this I kind of effed up a little bit. This is scarier than I thought it was gonna be. People can actually die. But yeah, like and I know like if you ask someone like who like if you named off like your 4 favorite character, like your character rankings, who would be the top out of the 4 for you?
For Skellington Crew?
Yeah. For the kids, I guess. Rank the kids.
Rank the kids. Like I always like to. Bottom and like this is like by like decimal points because I like all of these characters. I think the least developed of them is Fern, maybe. I wish there was a little bit more going on there. Though there's still a lot because she's got imposter syndrome, because she is definitely a person that is good at being in charge, but also she's like 12.
Yeah.
Number 3 slot, KB, my girl, quiet most of the time, nailing it most of the time, and then the episode where she has to literally fix herself because she's a cyborg.
Yeah.
And so they have to do some on-the-spot welding, which ruled. So good.
Also, the episode has some cool stop motion animation in it with the giant space crab.
Stuff looks so good. Got some great effects in Skeleton Crew.
And they still used the volume and stagecraft in this too.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Looks great. And they also had Dynamite directors as well.
Oh yeah.
So KB, number 3. Number 2, Wim. I really like him. I really like that actor. Not that I've seen him in anything else. I just thought that he was doing a fabulous job. He's got great reactions.
Yeah.
And then he's so looking forward to adventure at the beginning of the show. And then it's not like that gets crunched out of him, but it becomes so much more realistic for him. And he becomes more cynical, but also is able to bring that adventuring spirit and the fact that he can do it in the end.
Yeah.
it's great. Wim rules. And then number one, without a doubt, Neel. What are you talking about? Love characters that want to do the right thing, but at the same time are absolutely terrified of everything. Love it. I have that energy in spades.
Neil's great.
Yeah.
Also, not the
but
same species as Max Rebo. I looked into it. Not the same species as Max Rebo.
Interesting. Maybe all of those characters might take a backseat to Kim.
Who's Kim? I don't remember.
The owl lady, the new owl lady that we've met.
Yeah, she was pretty cool.
She's really great. I adored that character. Yoda and Maz Kanata without being those two characters.
Yeah, what if Maz Kanata or Yoda, but an owl?
Yes.
A space owl.
Space owl.
Space owl. Because it's not an actual owl.
No.
It's just like the space snakes that like live on Dagobah.
Yeah.
Like the other space Earth-like creatures that look like Earth-like creatures in Dagobah, but they're not. They're Dagobah creatures. They're different.
They're different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks exactly like a snake. It's a Dagobah snake, though.
Yeah, Dagobah snake.
Looks like an iguana. It's not an iguana.
It's actually warm-blooded.
Yeah.
That's how it's different.
That's right. Yeah. What else? Skeleton Crew just got good vibes. I hope, even though the show is definitely not going to get another season, I hope that they continue these types of similar but different vibes. It expands the pirates. Feels like such a classic Star Wars thing that they just haven't done before. At least not in any of the live action material that I've seen.
Yeah.
And it just feels so natural.
True. I really liked the production design of the show too, like suburbs in space, kind of like and, like just like looking basically
new.
And like looking like the Star Wars equivalent of what like an Earth like suburb would look like, with like how it was like all laid out and stuff, which kind of makes sense in like the context of the show, with like when they explain like what the planet is like more or less like made to be doing.
Yeah.
So it's probably just like very measured out, like with like what they're supposed to be doing with this kind of stuff.
It's unusually astute for them to point out that Attin and its suburban feel is attached wildly to the amount of wealth, which feels very American. Yeah. I would have never expected that, because whenever you see suburbs depicted in movies, it's always, we got to get out of these suburbs.
Yeah.
Not here necessarily. It's interesting.
Yeah, and like you said too, like I think I saw like one of the articles that said that the show had maybe like the lowest ratings, which is a real bummer, which like you said too, I think is probably partially just because of when it was released, because there was a new episode that came out on Christmas Eve. I think there's another new episode that came out on New Year's Eve. So I was like, that doesn't really help like a show when it's, because a lot of times that's like, I mean, I guess like olden TV show days is like you'd go on like your mid-season break like mid-December, and sometimes maybe you'd come back at the end of January or beginning of February, or sometimes if like your show really wanted to F with you, they want to come back until March or like April, and you'd be like, wait, I gotta wait with that mid-season finale for essentially the same distance of time that I had to wait for the season finale last year.
Yeah.
But the show just went through. But
how do you think general population feels about Star Wars at this point in time, Mark?
I don't know, because I'm not part of that general pop. But
That's true.
Like,
You and me were dialed into the cultural phenomenon that is Star Wars forevermore.
like I know I heard some people that aren't like super, like, wouldn't be super into it, like didn't even know like it was a thing that was on, or like didn't know that it was a Star Wars show. Possibly, which that could be good or a bad thing. But I know it
could be good, yeah.
like kind of like Deadpool would have said to Wolverine in Deadpool and everything. Welcome to the Star Wars universe. You're joining at kind of a low point. Is kind of, as far as not in sense of quality, but like where it just like between like, because like we all like Acolyte wasn't perfect, but we also enjoyed that show a lot too, because it was, again, it was like something new and something that was cool to watch. But then that also got canceled, and like the whole thing behind that too.
You can't have a character that's a person of color or a woman on there, and it doesn't matter what the quality of the show is, just through passive conversation that you drop by on social media.
Yeah,
I think general populations assume that Acolyte sucks.
Yeah, and which was good to not see that same kind of discourse aimed at kids.
Yeah,
for Skeleton Crew. So I guess some people do have at least that as a line for people. So, well, maybe not though too, because they gave Jake Lloyd a lot of shit in 1999 too. So
it's true.
But I guess at least with the show they didn't do that. But that's kind of a low bar to set for people to just like be kind humans.
I think it helps that the show is familiar enough to Stranger Things that people are like, I get it, even without necessarily being like, oh, Stranger Things, but Star Wars.
It's Stranger Wars.
That's what they should have called it. Yeah.
Star Things.
Star Things.
Neel is very obviously Dustin.
Yeah.
Oh, and you, like even like the little rat that's in like SM-33's eye, that would be like Neel's version of Dart from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Obviously, Fern is Max from Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Wim is like a mix of Mike and no, mostly just kind of like a mix of Mike and no, just Mike.
Just Mike.
Yeah. And then I think KB would be kind of like 11 in a way.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Because Fern also has 11-ish qualities just in terms of command, but doesn't have power of the technical wizardry, and also has a lot more of an imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then SM-33 is Steve.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. That's very correct.
Yeah. I don't know who Jod would be.
Hooper?
Like if Hooper was
Hooper just
was an asshole.
Bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, at least, and then the difference between this with Acolyte season 1 and this season 1 finale is the finale for this, like, it leaves it open for like, oh, like what could, like, Jod is still around, but this finale gives you like, oh, okay, so now the planet is open to the rest of the galaxy at this point. And knows the rest of like the galaxy like exists, like a thing that kind of exists there. Which I've been watching Severance at the same time as I've been watching like the tail end of Skeleton Crew too. So it's kind of, there's like a kind of an interesting similarity thing there too, with like basically the entire plant of Attin were innies, but now they've all been turned into outies, and that's a thing you'll understand if you watch Severance. But yeah, so like that could be a good ending just overall to the story, because it just kind of ends, with Wim looking up, like
It's good.
hopefully at the X-wings flying in as you do, which was funny earlier in the season too, where they're shooting at the X-wings because they didn't know that they were the good guys. So I thought that was kind of like a funny thing in that. But it's like a good like hopeful ending. It's basically like Luke looking out at the binary sunset, but it's Wim looking up at the X-wings. And
the X-wings are part of the 5% of Skeleton Crew that I really don't enjoy, just because they're doing so good with kind of doing their own thing in this other chunk of Star Wars. I wish it was something else that was.
They got B-wings though, so I appreciated the B-wing.
Always love a B-wing. Always love a B-wing.
Getting to use the lasers and stuff. That was fun. Got a blockade runner too. Yeah,
that and the appearance of a lightsaber would have been nice to just not have a lightsaber in a show.
It was worth it, mostly because of the way that it was first introduced and how it was turned on upside down.
Yeah.
First time lightsabers ever been turned on upside down.
True.
In Star Wars.
In Star Wars canon.
In Rick and Morty, that's happened, and it was completely vertical, and just started to fall through the earth.
That's really funny.
It was fully vertical, so it just started. You dropped it fully vertical, and it just starts going down. But yeah, I'm hopeful maybe we'll get another season, but I don't, because I think
with Filoni being the creative officer, it's all just, I feel.
But she was a producer on this too.
Sure.
And Favreau's too.
But
I liked John Watts' whole take on this too.
Agreed.
The Daniels did episode 3.
It was the Neel episode.
Yeah, which is the least Daniels-esque thing.
Yeah,
the Daniels do. And for people that don't know the Daniels, they did the "Turn Down for What" music video. They did Swiss Army Man. They did a little movie that won a few awards, I think. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Heard of it?
Yeah. Had Ki Kwan in it. You had Michelle Yeoh.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah, but it was like the very they're like let's see what we can do if we just dial it down.
Well, look, Picasso had to paint traditional pictures every once in a while to prove that he can do it classically.
You didn't want to
to do the Daniels, and also I remember whenever. Do you remember whenever they were announced for directing an episode of Skeleton Crew, Mark?
No, because
the rest of the internet was wisely like, please, no, don't sign up with a franchise thing, please. We want to see what you all have to do next. And the Daniels hopped on social media and were like, look, get it?
We like scared.
No, but they were like, in order for us to keep our insurance, we have to direct something. That's why they said that they directed this episode of Skeleton Crew to keep their insurance.
It's a good episode.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see Neel riding a farting corpse.
Same. Always.
Maybe next time.
Or turning into a bagel.
Yeah, or a rock. And then Jod could have lifted him. Because that's what Jedis do. They lift rocks with the Force.
Very true.
That's the whole thing. Just lift rocks. As we're closing out, was there any other things that you wanted to say about Skeleton Crew Season 1 that we didn't cover?
Really darn good. I enjoyed it. It's very slight. If you don't watch it, you're not missing anything. But at the same time, I wish that this was the direction that Star Wars was going in. New but same, which is to say same vibes, new stuff. But with Filoni being more active in development and them scaling back Star Wars production, because I think one of the problems is that Star Wars doesn't feel special anymore. So the less Star Wars, the more special it will feel. And then also the next two things that we've got on the pipeline in development are Ahsoka season 2 and The Mandalorian and Grogu.
And Andor season.
Oh yeah, and Andor season 2, which that's great, wonderful. Andor season 2 first, but then Tony Gilroy's out, and then Filoni is in charge of everything. Creatively, it seems he's got a lot of power because he's the internet whisperer. And the bad guy in Mandalorian movie is some guy from Clone Wars, and we're involving Stinky from the Clone Wars movie. And
wait, who's
Ahsoka
playing Stinky too? Isn't it like
Jeremy Allen White?
Yes, chef.
Yes, chef. Heard, chef.
Wait, is he just voicing?
Yes, I'm pretty darn sure.
I want to see Jeremy Allen White in a full prosthetic.
Yeah, same.
Jabba.
Same.
Like, well, not Jabba, but Hutt makeup.
Yeah.
Unless his Hutt somehow like they're gonna do some stuff with like the canon of Hutts, so that like actually the slug is kind of a larvae kind of stage for Hutts that they're in for, whatever indeterminate amount of time. But like that version that we saw of Jabba in A New Hope before they added the CG Jabba over him is like, that's actually like what they look like. Is like after they come out of this larvae stage, they have a little cocoon, and then they look like humanoid, and then they just look like Jeremy Allen White.
That's very clever. You're pulling in some way far out there Star Wars canon, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's all I like the prospect that all of Star Wars matters. Yeah, it's fun, even if I don't like all of it, and I don't, because that's part and parcel with being a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, it's being a fan of anything.
Yeah.
But the good thing about being a fan of everything is, like, even when you don't like it, you can still like elements of it. And then when you don't like certain elements of it, you don't have to go like on the internet and like tell people that they're wrong about it.
Just let go.
But especially if it's like, more so if it's like a good faith like thing that you don't like about it, not like you just don't like something because X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, I don't have to watch The Mandalorian, so I don't.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But so for and me, I liked Skeleton Crew a lot. I liked the whole vibe of the show. I
want an Onyx Cinder toy that I can look at on my
desk. You can
desk.
press the button and it like sheds.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that whole scene was very Toy Story 3-esque.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but like, I still think it'd be funny if you showed somebody Toy Story 3 and like just edited it so that it like cuts to the credits, as they'll close their grab their hands and look at each other.
I'll do that for you.
Yeah, and they just and then that's the end. There's not a 4 or 5 after that. That's just the end of Toy Story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how it ends.
Yeah.
For people, if they want to find you on the internet, where can they find you, Kenny?
Well, if you're watching the video version of this on YouTube, you know that I am the co-host of the Trek Wars Pod, the one podcast that is dedicated to answering the most important question in fandom, which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek, by going through both franchises in chronological release order. You can find all of our episodes at trekwarspod.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@trekwarspod. Follow us on Blue Sky @trekwarspod. and listen to early and even longer versions of our episodes on our Patreon, patreon.com/@trackwarspod, where Arizona Mark here is a proud patron, and we very much thank you for your patronage. We love you. We give you kisses. And then if you're ever in Austin, literally just hit me up through one of those social media things. I'll come see you. And
Don't
also,
physically hit him though.
Don't physically hit me up. And you can come see me do comedy at somewhere here in Austin because I'm doing stuff all the time.
Nice.
But yeah, Track Wars. We just finished the original series, and we're about to start the animated series, Star Trek, the original series. We're about to go on to Star Trek, the animated series, and we're currently in season 2 of Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Very exciting times.
Nice. Might be a good time for animation fascination crossover if you're doing basically doing two animated things at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't remember when because I remember I specifically asked to come on for the I'm forgetting the name of the story arc, but the Mortis trilogy.
The Mortis trilogy.
Yeah, I think that's a much later season though. So I could come on now and then come on the show again.
Yep.
Whenever more. I think that's like season 5 because it's like a later story arc, I remember. But yes. Animationfascination.net for animation stuff. We actually did Kenny, if you want to go, if you go to animationfascination.net and search Star Trek animated, I did an episode like 7 or 8, maybe 12 years ago, where we did a whole episode like about the Star Trek animated series, which would what I don't know what year that was, but yeah, so you can hear like 12 or 13 years younger me talking about that.
Hi everybody, it's me, Marc Vibbert. So happy to be here. That's how you said it back then. Oh, yeah. Animated series is a wild piece of Star Trek. Kind of like the holiday special in the sense that people didn't necessarily understand what they had. It's at the whims of 1970s Saturday morning cartoon manufacturing, while at the same time having almost the entire cast back and almost the entire behind the scenes crew back in the writer's room, including DC Fontana, who is like the best episodes of Star Trek probably written by her, and she's running the show. So you have a high quality of science fiction writing from people that are the best in the field, coupled with framing where it's for YouTube. This is for YouTube. I'm doing a YouTube thing, but like the framing of the faces will be like this because they're pinching pennies, not realizing that unlike their other shows, Laverne and Shirley in the Army and Partridge Family 200 AD, these shows will continue to be watched for decades and decades and decades to come. It's interesting. I'm extremely excited. It's a weird piece of Star Trek canon. And then also watching Star Wars The Clone Wars for the first time. That's pretty fun. I'm learning how to appreciate it in a way that is sincere.
Nice.
And starting in season 2, it's getting better. Yeah.
That show continues to get better each season.
I'm excited.
And then for the HOLDO Maneuver, you can find us at holdopod.com for people that can't spell maneuver. But there's also holdomaneuver.com too, if you want to spell out the entire thing. And then you can find us on social media at HOLDOPod. We're on Blue Sky, at holdopod.com on Blue Sky. So, but yeah, since Mike isn't here, I'll let you do the honors of his closing line. But as always, we're grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Ooh, thank the maker.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.